Okay, I'm shopping in Home Depot. I'm finishing up a job, and I have this moment. I've thought about this many times over the recent period of time. This COVID stuff. Myself, I've had so many experiences of the body with injury, illness that is, some would say, miraculously disappeared or healed itself on a revelation of something. And I've had open wounds close themselves. So, the position that I come from when I talk about the mind, the body, it comes from experience of having these deeply personal things occur that show me that there is so much more to life than this reacting to all the hysteria that's going on. And that there's information, right? So there's the world is providing us a wealth of information, and it's this feedback informing us of who we are being. And generally we get caught in this state, and it's what it's been for a while. It's this constant drive to succeed, to compete, this constant drive to make ends meet, to get to the next level, to make sure you've got enough money for retirement, enough, get your fucking health care. And the cost of that has skyrocketed, so now it's like, oh my god, I don't have health care and I can't afford. What happens if I get sick? And there's this underlying panic underlying pretty much every fucking thing we do. So if you consider that, and this has been going on for a long time, this new episode of panic and fear is not new. When you sit down, you get quiet enough, you can see like this shit's gonna happen regardless. We can call it COVID-19, we can call it, whatever we want. Something else, if we don't deal with this, something else is gonna come up too. So if we don't take the time out to stop and reflect on life, these things will keep continuing, and as they have over the eons, because that's what humanity does, is we avoid shit. We try to make things comfortable and not dig into the deeper meaning of life. When you take a look at the particular form that's happening now, we have this pathogen, whatever it is, that's going around, and it's catching on to so many people, right? And it has this possibility of becoming a pandemic. It's not really, even though the news says it is, but really it's not yet. But it can be, right? So with the propagation of all the news and hysteria, and when you see the reaction of people, and you take a look at yourself and see, I check in with myself. Am I getting caught up in this? And this is not to say don't take precautions that people say you should. If you feel you should, take those precautions and be respectful of other people as well. I try my best to do it, but also have to try to live my own truth as well. And not everybody's truths line up with everybody else's. So when you look at the body as an electrical, mechanical device, which is what it is, acting, and you are acting through it, there is this relationship that we have with our mind and our body. And on this premise, the mind is more powerful than the body, unless you give the body power over the mind. And what we're seeing is that a lot of people are giving the body power over the mind in their belief system, and instead of learning what the body is showing them. And God, it's so hard to talk about, because it takes a really fucking open mind to capture on to some of these things and accept them without throwing all these fucking arguments that they're blasting out there. So when something's happening to the body, it's informing the being, and then it's informing everyone else too. And the thing is, there's no blame in this, and you have to understand it. There is no blame. There is not anything in this that is saying you did something wrong. There's not anything saying you deserve this. There's not anything saying that. It's just what is, and it's what's happening. There's information. And the lungs, on a metaphysical sense, the lungs represent our ability to take in life. The lungs represent our place where we feel we can breathe and move easily in the world. And if you take a look at the history of the last several decades, life is compounded and compounded and compounded stresses on the being. of just being able to survive. Now, that's understandable that all this pressure, with bits and pieces of happiness and vacations and, ups and downs and loves and, all this other good stuff in there, but under the surface, this pressure has been compounding and building and building and building until it reaches a breaking point. And when we don't pay attention enough, when we don't pay attention to those subtle impulses and those subtle messages coming through, it eventually comes through the body in the form of illness, disease. It comes through the experience as this, some sort of trauma that happens as a mechanism, because we didn't pay attention to the earlier signals, and so now it's in the forefront. And so, when we get to pandemic proportion, you can see that this has been building up in society for a long time, and eventually it's like, hey, wake the fuck up. So now this is the chance to do that. And once it reaches that proportion, once it comes up to the level of the body, yes, use the tools you have, use the medical doctors, use these things that we've developed in order to work with it. But all it does is buys time. All it does is gives you another chance to really take a look at things, to find out what's true. It doesn't fix anything. If you don't take a deeper look at the causes and conditions of life, this will come up again. Now I heard something on the radio today that they're talking about how this could be a seasonal thing. Absolutely, it could be a seasonal thing. Does it have to be? Absolutely not. What makes a difference in that? It's that's up to you to decide. All I'm saying is that it's possible that if in mass we start taking a deeper look at life and why we're here, there's a possibility that it doesn't have to continue. I like this Buddhist saying. I think it was the Buddha, the original Buddha that we consider the enlightened one, that laid out the rules. It said, in life there is suffering, but also there's release from suffering. And so we have the suffering. We know this now because so many people are suffering. If we're living in a state of fear, that's suffering. But there's also release from suffering. And that doesn't come from ignoring things. It comes from going into things and actually realizing the subtle truth underlying the subtle nature of everything. And so we have an option. If we're caught in a state of fear, there are tools that are, while you're getting the medication, while you're getting your ventilator, while you're getting your mask, while you're getting all of this stuff, that man-made tools and devices, which are, I would argue, placebos, which is very powerful, which also goes to show that the mind is more powerful than the body. When a drug company admits that the placebo is more effective than the drug itself, has a higher success rate with less side effects than the drug itself. So what gives, right? So if we can learn about the mind, and now there's so many new tools out and resources available for modern science to verify and corroborate the power of the mind. And that is this invisible thing that is not tangible. It is not the brain. It exists outside of the brain. It exists outside of the physical body, but it is also experienced through the body. So there are so many resources available now that maybe in the past would have been considered voodoo. Maybe it still is, because it's outside of the paradigm of so many people that are suffering. So there's another way to see this thing. There's another way to see it. There's another way to relate with life. When I start losing my breath, when I become asthmatic, just consider the amount of pressure that I might have put myself under to maintain the status quo, or to maintain this image of what I think life is supposed to be, that is maybe not necessarily in line with what life is. And so perhaps we can take some pressure off of ourselves for what we're trying to do and what we're trying to maintain, and sit back, ease up on some of our burdens that we've imposed on ourselves, and take a breath. Maybe go for a walk without all the stories rolling around in our head about everything that we've been thinking all the time. Who we are, what we think needs, is right and wrong in the world. All of our arguments for justifying things. Maybe, just stop and give yourself permission to take a breath and be released from the personality, at least for a little bit. Give yourself like 30 seconds of a break from yourself. God, that would be so healing. If you gave yourself 30 seconds to a minute of a break from yourself a couple of times a day, to just breathe, feel the breeze, feel the sunshine, feel the coolness or the coldness, the crispness, if it's cold outside, instead of saying, oh, it's cold, I want it to be warm, or some shit like that we always do. You watch these weathermen and they say, oh, it's gonna be a dreary day. Dreary is fucking gorgeous. You ever seen a dreary day? You walked out, you feel the aliveness on a dreary day, or like this wintry mix, which is the most god-awful weather pattern, but it's fucking amazing. And if you can get out there and feel it, just let go of all the complaining and all of the preferences of how it should be or how you'd rather have it be, and just revel in the way it is. Revel in this stuff. And then see what changes. See if maybe this prolonged health condition starts to go away. Notice how, maybe you start to feel a little better because there's less complaining. There's less habitual thinking about how things should be. And there's more alignment with how things are. And then you might find how you become more aligned with the way things are. And nature is perfect. And you come in line with that, and all of a sudden, kind of watch what happens with your experience, and your relationships start to change and blossom, or you start to just feel better. I mean, shit, isn't that what everybody wants? Is just to feel better? It's such a simple thing, and it's not complicated at all. But we like to complicate things with knowing how things are and how they should be. But for a minute, if we can give that up and just take a deep breath, walk outside, open the window if we're quarantined right now, like open the window, get some fresh air, and see if you notice any different smell or any sort of a quality to the air when the mind stops re-rehearsing everything that it knows. Yeah, it's good stuff.